Hey everybody, it's me again, and I'm here with Christopher Bryan. Do a very interesting chart reading video. Of course we're doing Edgar Cayce's chart, but this will not be a typical natal chart reading video. He's going to come from a tarot card standpoint about certain aspects I've picked out, and hopefully this all flows together. I'm nervous about this, but yeah, Christopher, introduce yourself. Tell everybody what you do also.
Okay, hi everybody, and thanks for tuning in. First of all, I'm Christopher Byrne, and I've got a YouTube channel called Christopher Byrne Monthly Tarot Readings. So every month I dish out 12 forecasts for the various signs, using a method that I've developed using the position of your birth moon to make it quite accurate. So do check that out. And I'm also a healer, a teacher. I teach tarot, and this is my living. This is what I do. I'm living the dream. So I try and put a lot of content up. I try and answer questions for nothing as well, and do stuff that hopefully will help you guys out there. So that's what I'm doing. And what Kajai and I it's his brainchild. I'm just the sidekick. I'm like Robin to his Batman today, so that's all right. Because if it all goes wrong, I don't get to share any responsibility, right? So I'm gonna look at the tarot. So what I'm gonna do, I think after the reading, the birth chart reading, I'm gonna draw the cards and see. Now I'm going to shuffle them randomly, obviously, and see just how they tie in, because that's the wonderful thing about tarot. It really works in the real moment, and so we'll just see how it goes. This is live; anything could happen. So,
All right, let's jump right into it. Okay,
let's do it.
Edgar Cayce was born March 18th, 1977, at 3:20 p.m. in Hopkinsville, Kentucky. He was born with his sun in Pisces, moon in Taurus. He had a Leo ascendant, a midheaven in Taurus. Also, Pluto right on the midheaven in Taurus, Neptune in Taurus, Venus in Pisces, Saturn in Pisces, Mercury Pisces in the seventh house, conjunct his north node, also in Pisces, uh, Mars in Capricorn, Jupiter in Capricorn, and Uranus in Leo conjunct his ascendant in the 12th house. Now, with this video and with any of my chart reading videos, you'll see I don't have a particular style. I just go with whatever catches my eye in the chart. And with this case, the first thing that jumped out to me in Edgar Cayce's chart was that he has a Leo ascendant. Now, your ascendant is, the lens in which you view life. It's how you perceive life. It's how people see you. It's, who you are when you step outside. And it's also the house of identity. Now, this gave him a really magnetic personality. He could, enter a room and everyone would notice him. Now, the interesting thing about this in his chart is that Leo, of course, is ruled by the sun. So his ascendant lord is in the eighth house. His sun is in the eighth house. Leo rules the sun. So the lord of his ascendant is in the eighth house. Now, the eighth house, it's one of those mysterious houses in astrology. It deals with the occult. It deals with the other world, death, sicknesses, and things like that. So he had that as a backdrop also to his life. I feel like his son being in the eighth house, he wanted a deeper understanding of life and himself. He really wanted to connect to something that was greater than who he was. He wanted to connect to something higher, more than the mundane things in life. So that's one of the things that stood out to me about his chart. Now, this is the part where I asked Christopher to shuffle the cards and pull something that would pertain to his Leo ascendant and to his sun being in the eighth house as his ascendant lord.
Okay. It's very interesting. My ascendant is also in the eighth house, and I share some of those interests, and I like to be seen, which I'm a Pisces, so for a Pisces to want to be seen is quite unusual. Okay, so let's go. Let's see what comes out. So, well, straight away, what comes out, this is the King of Discs here. And what I'll try and do, if you can't see these clearly, I'll put some images up. And perhaps we can upload them in a link or something so people can look at them. Now, the king of the world, literally the king of discs, the Latin term Rex Mundi, king of the world, interestingly, was often given. That moniker was often given to the devil as well, Rex Mundi, particularly by the Knights Templars, but that's a whole other video. And here we've got somebody that is outward looking, has a magnetic and dynamic personality, just like, you know, that Leo ascendant suggests. And for me, what's quite interesting in this card, okay, this shield is at the 8 o'clock position. It's in the 8th house. It's at the 8 o'clock position on the card. So it's facing towards not the 8 o'clock on the clock, but the 8th house. So if you look around the wheel, you know, so that's where it is, right there. So this shield is a symbol of protection, of healing. Cayce was a healer, right?
Yes,
He was one of the most amazing healers. In fact, at certain bits and pieces that I've read about Cayce say that he probably should be hailed as the founder of the New Age movement. He was, you know,
he was a healer before he was a psychic or seer. That's what he started out doing, was healing.
Absolutely, absolutely. So it's really, we're getting a bit of video lag. I hope that'll catch up in a minute. But also, this king of discs, he carries a pair of what we would know today as nunchuckers, but they're actually rice flails. So this is about like kind of working with the stuff at hand and kind of working with the natural energies and, you know, harvesting the land. So he was a great, he was very, he was quite a, what's the word I'm looking for? He did a lot of stuff for charity as well. And I think he set up his own, he set up his own hospital. I think I'm right in saying.
Yeah, he did set up his own hospital that eventually during the Great Depression it went down.
Yeah,
but yeah, that was his main goal, was to set up a hospital. Yeah. And he, like you said, charity. He never charged for a reading. He always relied on donations, which, you know, unfortunately took a toll on him and his family. But yeah.
So it's really this character, the King of Discs, is so fitting for Edgar Cayce, and the idea of the King of Discs in the tarot is open, is giving, you know, is social, is enigmatic, is magnanimous, you know, all those things, and is very practical. So, but again, the king here, having finished his quest, is now looking off to future quests, looking to the future, which is what he did.
All right, thank you.
Okay.
Another thing that stood out to me is that he has Uranus in the 12th house. It's also conjunct his ascendant, but I want to put more of the focus on it being in his 12th house. Now, just like the 8th house, it's one of those psychic houses. The 12th house, more than the 8th, deals with past life, you know, karmic issues. Uranus is also retrograde in his 12th house in the sign of Leo. So that is also a big psychic indicator in a chart. Even though Uranus is a generational planet, how it becomes personal to us, you look at it, all right, what house is it in and what aspects is it making in your chart? So that's how it becomes personal to us. This indicates that, you know, he did have an understanding of who he was in past lives, and he was able to bring those skills into this life. It also, you know, Uranus is a planet of, you know, astrology falls under the planet of Uranus, because Uranus deals with, you know, new age things, new age concepts. I've read a few books, a few of his astrology books also. Uranus also relates to consciousness on a global level. And of course, the 12th house deals with the subconscious mind. So I saw that in his chart was definitely a bridge between the subconscious and the conscious mind, and receiving and pulling information. Also, he was the sleeping prophet. You know, you receive dreams when you are in a sleep, or when you're asleep, when you're in a sort of meditative state, and that's how he gave most of his readings, in a meditative state. So that is my that's another thing that stood out to me in his chart.
It's very interesting that when the planet, you know, because that Uranus, which is such a planet of radical change and sometimes upheaval, and that's, you know, but the change and the spirituality, and that is totally what he was about. And a generational thing, again, being the kind of founder of the first most famous, I suppose. And he said, in fact, something, I read something today which made me go, yeah, because this is my big thing. the subconscious mind knows everything. And if you can just get past the bridge of the ego, you're there. So shuffled again. So let's see what comes out. Okay. This is interesting. It's the High Priestess. So that's about as spiritual as you can get, right? So if you want to show this video to any of your friends, this is proof that tarot, I'm shuffling these cards randomly, it works. All right. Well, we're talking about a subject and it works. And if you want to know how it works, well, that's another video. All right. Not only is the High Priestess about transcending the veil of the ego to reach ultimate wisdom, but at the feet of the High Priestess are all these symbols of abundance. Okay. So the High Priestess, it says, you have to go within. Just like Cayce did, you have to go within. And once you go past the veil of the ego, you get abundance. In other words, once you figure out what you're truly called to do, rather than just go along with the crowd, then you get your abundance. It's very interesting because I think the High Priestess is the archetypal feminine energy, which in tarot means wisdom. So ultimate wisdom. This is wisdom above and beyond the bounds of a 3 or 4 dimensional existence. This is universal consciousness. So that kind of ties in nicely, I think.
Thank you. It's going swimming. I'm still kind of nervous though.
Relax, man. We got this.
Another big psychic indicator in his chart is that he has both Pluto and Neptune conjunct his moon.
Yeah.
All in the sign of Taurus. So, Earth signs. His Pluto is in the 10th house. With his moon and Neptune are in the 9th house. Now, the 9th house is all about higher learning, philosophy, spiritual practices. So his moon being there, which also represents a part of the subconscious mind in a chart, and with that conjunction from Neptune, I really feel like this, again, gave him a wanting to connect to something higher. This also indicates a love of sharing what he knew. His mind was always sort of in a dream state, contemplating, what's the meaning of life? Where are we going? What's happening here? Now, according to a good astro friend of mine who very psychic herself, who also makes videos, the Earth signs psychic ability, they deal with clairsentience. I believe that's the word. And, also a heightened 5 senses. So feeling things, when he's in a reading, getting a smell or taste. Also, I forgot what you call it, but when, psychics pick up things.
Precognition.
Precognition also goes with that. All things Edgar Cayce did in his readings, whether he take a cloth from someone and give them a reading about, a relative in a past life, or, during, I forgot, there was some stone, a red stone, something involving a red stone, where he felt the bumps of it and gave a reading from that. So all of that he did. So I thought that was, something else that stood out to me in this chart.
Do you know, the guy was incredible because he did in his life over, he about 14,000
plus
readings. Yeah. So there are some people that say, oh, a lot of his prophecies didn't come true. Well, you're always going to get the haters. And in fact, a prophecy is only valid if people do the things that will lead to the prophecy. So sometimes we have free will, but for somebody to do over 14,000 readings, then they must have been doing something right. And what strikes me also is this notion of, you mentioned about the empathy clairsentience, and it's very interesting. I wonder how many of your viewers and people watching this will be able to answer these questions, because these are the questions. If you can say yes to these questions, you're an empath, which means you can also read people. So very difficult struggle during childhood, feeling left out, feeling different from everybody else, feeling that everything was just too much, taking things very personally, walking into a room and taking on the atmosphere of that, feeling very guilty, feeling that your way was not the normal way. Those are the signs that you're empathic, and that more and more this happens now as we kind of come into the age of Aquarius. So if you can answer yes to those questions, then you are an empath, and as such you need to be practicing your grounding and practicing, you know, getting to know yourself. Anyway, that's the advert for spiritual health over and done with for now. Let's see what the next card out is. So we're looking for something here that really embodies that kind of Neptunian energy. What else? What else are we looking at here?
Also, a willingness to share spiritual knowledge with other people, which is all over his chart. It was I was when I was looking at his chart, I was saying this is sort of easy to do, but difficult to do because all roads pointed to what he did. Basically, all the roads. I kept trying to find, you know, things that were different. I'm like, no, this is the psychic indicator here, psychic indicator here, psychic indicator there. But dealing with the ninth house, just a love of, you know, a love of spiritual knowledge, a yearning for it, and a, you know, a deeper understanding of life, which is basically everything in this chart.
So the card next up is Strength. Which is literally the union between the higher self and the lower self. So it relates to Leo. So if we think about, you know, the Lord, the sun being in the 8th house, and this is about engagement. And one of the things about the 8th house is also that very intimate engagement. But this is when the wisdom here, so the female archetype is wisdom, and the Leo, the lion, is the world, the material existence. And this card is about linking the two realms together. Okay, the spiritual and the material existence together, but also it's about direct experience. So using those precognitive, presentient skills that were naturally innate in his makeup, he would have used those to engage and reach up for the highest purpose, which is the holy grail that's being held there. So again, you know, it's another very interesting Leo card. Leo, you know, everything flows from the ascendant. And when we look up again, if we think about this using the positions of the houses on the signs, or the houses rather, this is in the midheaven, at the junction of the 9th and the 10th house, the beginning of the 10th house, reaching up for that. So actually wanting to engage that inner wisdom with the material world, because the 10th house is in many parts about projection, isn't it? Material achievement. So I think that's quite interesting.
All right. The next thing that I noticed, or really the first thing you really notice when you look at his chart, is the heavy Neptunian theme in his chart. He has a 4-planet in Pisces, also his north node, and he has that influence from that conjunction from Neptune to his moon. So I feel it's safe to say, to really get an idea of who he was as a person, you know, we all read things about him and, you know, we see documentaries. I would say, you know, he really did value otherworldly goals, you know, trying to attain to something higher. He continued, you know, at some points in his life, he may had, you know, divine discontent, not being happy with where he was spiritually, and always wanted to grow, to know, and to connect to something more. Also struggling with, like you said, empathy, this overwhelming feeling of being vulnerable at all times, trying to connect reality to his dreams, trying to connect, you know, those two together, because that is a heavy Neptunian thing, or someone with a heavy Piscean influence would, you know, would struggle with. Also shows it important for him to get alone time, to be rejuvenated. As you know, if you read or know anything about Edgar Cayce, he would do countless readings all day, you know, 7 readings a day, 8 readings a day. His wife suggested that he'd only do 2, but he just couldn't say no. He couldn't say no, and that, you know, took a toll on his health. It's important. It was very important for him to step back, you know, to not do it for a while and then come back. He needed that time to be rejuvenated. And unfortunately, you know, he suffered a stroke due to the fact that he did not allow himself to get rejuvenated from all those readings, because those readings really did, you know, on an energy level, take a lot from him. Even though he could slip into that dream state very easily, it still took a toll on his body. Yeah. So that, you know, that's something that I saw in his chart with that heavy Neptunian theme. And, you know, his main mission, Pisces is you know, the healer, it's the teacher. So he really wanted to heal people. He's, you know, he wanted to teach people. And that's, you know, basically what I got from that heavy Neptunian theme.
Yeah, so I've emerged here to draw out 2 cards because I think there's the like the public or the
Persona.
energetic life, and also then the personal, as you were talking about, the toll it takes on a person. So the first card I drew out was the Wheel of Fortune. Okay, which is all about, you know, changing fortunes. It's about understanding. You mentioned about wanting to understand like the mind of God or understand those higher principles, and that's what the Wheel of Fortune is. It's seeing behind the like the mechanism of reality and seeing the energy, seeing the actual spiritual consciousness and seeing where that life force flows from. So there was always that personal, I think, I don't know a lot about the man, but there would have always been that personal kind of need, as you've said, to like know more, to reach higher. But then personally, I get the Seven of Cups. Okay, which is about when energy becomes stagnant. All right. Now, this interestingly relates to the planet Venus, because seven in the tarot is a number of material work. And what this says to you, that if literally, if you work too hard, then your energy, shown here as water, which is tarot language for life force, becomes stagnant and goes poisonous and causes imbalance. And I think it was 1877 he was born and 1945 when he died. So, you know, he lived a fairly long life, but he probably could have lived a lot longer, couldn't he?
Mm-hmm.
It's interesting also with this because it astrologically, this talks about, and you may be able to feed back to me on this, this talks about Venus in Pisces. So you may know this, sometimes it says there's a deep-seated need to heal. It's like
Yeah.
it's in your genetic makeup to heal, in this case, the past. But obviously, by knowing, not repeating the same mistakes of the past, we can change the future, which again is what he was kind of about, isn't it?
Yes, definitely he was. I got a I'm learning the nodes from this guy named Walter. If any of you have seen any of my chart reading videos, I always get a quote from this guy. I don't learn anything about the nodes from a book. I'm really learning from this guy, and I asked him for a quote on Edgar Cayce's chart, and he said this: "It's funny. It took a health issue for him to find his spiritual gifts." Now, if anybody knows anything about Edgar Cayce, his first reading was done on himself. He had got something had happened with his throat, or he had got something, and he went to a doctor, and the doctor said, well, maybe you should try self-hypnosis. His first reading and his only reading was, one on himself. So but yeah, he said it's funny, it took a health issue for him to find his spiritual gifts. His south node in the first house in Virgo, I can't remember his illness at this time, but due to it, it allows him to find a deeper meaning of life, and he was allowed to channel it into all his Piscean energy. Having his north node in the seventh house would allow him to connect, relate to others, but more so because Piscean energy allows him to merge with others on a deep spiritual level. Having his part of fortune in Libra in the second house confirms this, as with his relationship will help him build his self-worth and resources. Saturn, Mercury, and Venus opposing his south node made him work very hard to find himself in terms of expression, but the moreover followed his north node. He was rewarded with love, communication abilities, and the power to heal himself physically and to share it with others. So that was
That's
Walter's
cool.
quote.
Yeah. And again, the seven being the number of work, it is about going in and working on those inner energies. So isn't it funny how so many times we hear about people having, huge spiritual awakenings, big quantum shifts in their spirituality after illness or misfortune, or, it's a massive catalyst, isn't it, in a lot of people's lives. So that, yeah, that makes a lot of sense for me, because that's twofold. It's like the great work and then the personal cost, or the personal, the personal circumstance.
So would you pull a card on his north node?
Let's go with that. Yeah. So, and
In
I
the seventh
think
house in Pisces.
seventh house in Pisces within the north. Right. Okay. So here then we're coming out with I've got the Lovers, right, which is quite literally is the union of the higher and the lower self. It's also on a mundane level, it's a Gemini card, but it's also about identifying what is wrong or what your fears are and marrying with your sense of self-esteem or self-worth to move you forward. It also is a card that removes religious dogma from ritualistic or ritualistic processes. Or so, if any of you have been to church for like a wedding or a christening, it's this crazy ritual, and in fact if you take the ritual away and just deal with the energy, then it makes more sense. So the Lovers is about that higher self marriage, and working totally with the higher self, but also again like that ability to connect to people as well. It's about connection on all levels. In this version of the cards, it shows the angelic realm, the kind of the majestic like regal realm, then it shows two children, and it shows the animal kingdom, then the plant kingdom, and finally the sort of self-contained inner knowledge. It's the secret that sits in the middle of every single cell of us. So that's what he was working with, and that North Node energy, that's really that is about being in the flow and going out there and having that dynamic urge to connect as well. Because a lot of people with gifts like Cayce would have been kind of just locked themselves away and been nomadic, so he was very different, a real people person actually.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Well, that honestly is the video. Those are the things that really stood out to me in this chart that I really wanted to get out and talk about. Is there anything you spotted in this chart that you wanted to talk about?
I like Chiron, which is 27 degrees in Aries, and Chiron, like the master healer, which of course he was, and so I wanted to just shuffle quick about that, because Chiron, the story of Chiron, he was a centaur who, and back in the days of mythology, centaurs were quite a boisterous race. They were quite known for their sort of drinking and womanizing and stuff. And, when you're the size of a horse, then nobody argues with you, right? Chiron was a very cultured, very spiritual being, and he became this master healer.
And it's also in his 9th house.
Ah, right. Yeah, so this is interesting. And Chiron was mortally wounded. He couldn't overcome his own illnesses. He had to transcend in order to do that, which struck me as interesting, because Cayce would transcend into this sleep state. So what we've got is the universe, the world. Okay, so this in my version, and if like I say, we'll try and put some pictures up. If you can't see this image very clearly, then just Google the Thoth, Thoth tarot, and this is the universe, which is in normal tarot decks the world. What this is this is like connection with the highest wisdom through the third eye, beyond the third eye, beyond the veil, and it's feeding new knowledge into the world. The serpent of knowledge, which is tarot language for knowledge, is the serpent. This dancer is guiding this new knowledge in to the third eye, which is, this is what we're seeing. We're behind, like in the void, where. So Cayce was a ground breaker. He was a world changer. If he'd been alive in this time, I think he would have been an incredibly powerful, a real changer, because this card, the world, is about seeing things from a worldview. He set up an institute for enlightenment, which still, I think, is still in existence today. Yeah. There is a legacy, isn't there? But this is about ultimately wanting to be a real world changer and having the power to do it. And that, for me, Chiron, on a sort of global consciousness level, is, we cannot transcend our wounds, our differences, our prejudices, our illnesses, unless we actually transcend, which means like putting down all the stuff we believe and actually saying, you know what, we're all part of this one universe, the one song, we're all notes in the universe. And that ultimately, I think, if there's any kind of legacy at all for people like Cayce to have left, it should be focusing on that. So yeah, go world peace and all that, but it's the only way we're going to change. It's change, isn't it? All right, put down the gun, start knitting.
All right, well, that is our video, and thank you for watching, Christopher. Thank you for doing this with me, this experiment.
Yeah,
I'll put his link to his channel below the video, and yeah, and again, please comment below and tell me what you think. If you want to see more of these videos, then we'll definitely go for it. But I thank you again for
let's
doing
do
it.
one on George Bush. Yeah.
You know, honestly, I initially wanted to do the Queen of England.
Okay.
But I didn't know that much about her, and I was like, well, maybe he can do it. But then I thought of your chart, and then Edgar's chart popped in my head. And I said, let's do Edgar Cayce's chart first.
It's very interesting, and as an experiment, I always love to do. I'm plucking up the courage at the moment to do something similar, but not using another person's chart. Just saying, right, okay, I'm going to get a group of people together and say, okay, what are you thinking? And I'm going to shuffle and pull a card, and it will mirror what they're thinking. But you know that you either need big kahunas for that, or you need to be really drunk. So watch this space and see which one I choose. Yeah, so thanks everybody for watching. Thanks for inviting me to your channel, Kajia. Amazing.
Thank you.
And
All right.
yeah, I'll send Kajia a picture of these cards so you can look at them and zoom in and play around with them. Okay.
All right. Thank you. Bye.
Cheerio, everybody. See you.